Oh god, this room is really hot. I have so much book mail in this room. I need to I have my tea and I'm ready to do my January and February reading wrap up. Hello everyone, I'm Aika. If you've never seen any of my videos before, hi, nice to meet you. And if you have, welcome back. I have not posted a video in a little bit of time. I planned on making like a January wrap up, but it's been a really bad 2 reading months for me. So, bad reading month. But you know what was good? Dinner. My dinner tonight was really good. I made some shrimp scampi, I made some bruschetta. We did like a little family dinner because it's my sister's birthday tomorrow, and also it was just a little family time because my mom is gonna go back to Jakarta next week. And one of the most exciting things about her going back to Jakarta is she's gonna be able to bring me more teh tarik, which is literally just this like tea, like a milk tea, like a specific type of milk tea in like a packet, but it's so good and I love it. I literally spent $14 on a thing of it from Amazon. It's so expensive here, but it's so cheap in Jakarta and like Singapore and Malaysia, so I'm excited for her to bring me back some of that. Hello everyone, so I was in the middle of editing this video, but I thought I'd pop in because I got some really exciting news the other day. So Fabled Fantasy is throwing a Romantasy book con. They've invited me to come as an influencer, and that is so crazy and insane to think about, but I will be at the book con, the Romantasy book con, next year, February 20th through February 22nd at the Los Angeles Biltmore Hotel. Oh my god, it's still so crazy to think about how I've been invited, but there is going to be over 200 authors and vendors there. There's gonna be Romantasy themed everything. There's going to be panels, there's gonna be like fun bookish activities, there is going to be author signings, obviously. Oh my god, I'm just thinking about how much money I'm gonna spend on so many new books. But yeah, it's a year away, so you have some time to plan it out, plan out your accommodations, your schedule, and all of that. There are 3 ticket tiers. They all entail different things, and tickets go on sale March 17th, 2024. And if you use code Tharion, Tharion with a capital T, when you purchase your tickets, you get a free 10 extra raffle tickets. And oh my god, when I found out about it, I was literally jumping up and down yesterday. I don't know, it's crazy to think about. But I've never been to a book con before, so this is gonna be my first one, and I thought it was just special that it was a romantasy one because that is my favorite genre. But some of the authors that are gonna be there is Danielle L. Jensen, Annalise Brana, oh my god, I can't remember her name, but the author of Rhapsodic is gonna be there. There is so many, and the lineup just keeps getting updated and there's just more and more people going. But you can find all of the information on their website, fabledfantasyevents.com, which I'll put in my description, and I also have it linked in my link in bio on all of my platforms. So it's on here on YouTube as well if you open my channel. It is on my Instagram, it's on my TikTok, but you can also find information on their social media where they do updates on who is coming and all of that, and that's super exciting. I can't wait to go. It's so surreal that I've been invited. There is also gonna be a masquerade ball on the last night, which it's so exciting. I want to dress up like a fantasy princess. When else will I get the opportunity to wear a ball gown? But yeah, I just thought I'd share, and I hope to see some of you there. But anyways, on to this reading wrap up. Technically, I only finished 2 books in January and February, and then I started 3 more. So let's go through them. Let's do a little review. Here are the books I have that I'm gonna talk about today. Such a small stack. This one shouldn't even be counted in. Not even a stack. This is sad. How am I a book talker who does not have time to read? How does that make sense? So, first book that I read, and I actually finished, I just finished this a few days ago, but it was a pretty big book in my defense, but it is When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker, and I love this book, okay? So I don't know why it took me so long to get through it. It is almost 700 pages long. I got it in like this adorable PR package from the Nerd Fam, and oh my god, the PR package, I loved it. The book, love it too. It's a romantasy, it has dragons, it's so beautifully written, and it's such an intricate fantasy world and magic system, and it's such a beautiful love story, and it just really like pulled at my heartstrings the whole way through. Like, it made my heart hurt, but in a good way. It comes with a pronunciation and a glossary in front, and I know some people were complaining about it. They were like, oh, like it came with like a 20-page glossary. Why are you reading it? Is that what you're supposed to do with a glossary? Because I have never, in a textbook, in any other book, where there was a glossary and I've actually read through it. I just kind of use the glossary as like reference for like when I'm like reading and I don't like, I see something I don't recognize or something I don't remember, and then I could just flip back. But some people were like, oh my god, I had to like read through 20 pages of glossary. Is that what you're supposed to do with a glossary? Like, am I just dumb? Have I been like living life wrong? Because I have never in my life actually like read through a glossary like word by word, definition by definition. But honestly, the glossary, so clutch, because I'm a forgetful gal. There's nothing else I can say. I forget things very easily. Like, even when I'm doing like reviews for like reading wrap-ups and stuff like that, as I'm reading my book, I'm like on my phone in my notes app, I'm like, oh my god, like this book is da-da-da. Like, I make notes of my thoughts the whole way through, like whenever I'm reading anything, because I'm so forgetful. Pronunciation guide especially. Can we make that a thing in fantasy books? I am so exhausted of sounding like an idiot when I'm trying to pronounce these fantasy names. Because I swear to god, some of these names are like 5 syllables long. Okay? I struggle enough trying to speak English, and you want me to like pronounce these names that are not in English, that aren't in any language I recognize. For all I know, these names could come up from like a language that the author made up. Make pronunciation guides a thing. It was so greatly appreciated. I'm in favor of pronunciation guides. The glossary was definitely not like a cop-out on explaining the different things in the world. Like, they're still incorporated and explained in the story. It's just also kind of there so that like if you want to like a little refresher, it's there, you know? Like, if it's something mentioned in like the first like 30 pages of the book, and then you see it mentioned again in like in like page 450, what are the chances that you're gonna remember it if it's like a creature or something? And if you don't, oh my god, it's so easy. You flip back to the front of the book, you see it's all in alphabetical order. You're like, oh, a truth tune? What is that? Oh, it's a person who has a unique ability to tell when another person is lying and can see through all the lies and all like the runes on their bodies. Like, the glossary was amazing. And it's not like a textbook where you could put the glossary on the end of the book, because at that point then the readers won't even know that the glossary exists, because, well, unless you're completely psycho. And I stand by this, okay? People who read the ending of the book before starting the book, and I know like to some people that might sound like, what? People do that? Yes, people do that. Some people just decide that they're going to read how the book ends and find out how it ends before starting it. But like, I love the banter in this book. I love the main character, Rave. She's so badass. So Rave is an assassin for like this rebellion group, and it's called, oh, look at that, I don't remember how to pronounce it. Let me flip back to the pronunciation guide. She's the I'm still gonna sound silly saying it with the pronunciation guide, but she's an assassin for this rebellion group called Fear du Ath, and she kills bad people. Wow, so not cliche. Really liked her as a character. I thought there were a lot of like levels to who she was. Like, she was like a really well-written character, and we've only gotten like a little glimpse of her because it's book 1 in a series. Okay, the series is going to be called the Moonfall series, and I'm dying for book 2. but I read book 1 when book 1 just released. So now we have to wait a whole other year until I get to see the Moonfall series. But yeah, so she's like an assassin for this rebellion group. She kills bad people to make a stance against the kingdom and the government. But one day she gets caught by this bounty hunter and she's in prison, and that's when we meet Khan, who is the love interest. And he is actually a king as well, not to the kingdom that she's in, but for a neighboring kingdom, and he is the brother of the king of the kingdom that she lives in. So there's 3 kingdoms in this world, and they're ruled by different Vagor brothers. And so Khan Vagor is the king of the Burn, and Rave, she lives, or well, where the book starts off, she is in the Fade. But like, she's in prison, and then Khan just rescues her. Why? We don't know. You know, so obviously he has something of his own plans. He knows stuff that the readers don't know and Rave doesn't know. So the whole book is like a big mystery, and you're just like kind of trying to piece together everything, which I really liked. It's not like a mystery book, but you know what I mean. It's like you're trying to piece together like what's happening. You're like, oh, like why is he like rescuing her? Why does he care? Like, what does he want from her? And up until the end of the book, I was like, oh my god, new stuff is still happening. New stuff that I thought I knew, but I did not know. And so he rescues her, but she's like, no, like I don't want to go with you. I need to kill this bounty hunter who put me in prison, because you know what? He killed my best friend. And she was the only person that I've ever loved. Because she's like, well, one, she's an assassin, but before that, she had like this traumatic past that you'll see more and more as you go along in the book, and you'll kind of like figure out like why she is the way she is. And the thing is, she wants to kill Khan because, in her own words, he is a tyrant king, because to her, all of the Vagor brothers are just bad. And as far as she knows, she doesn't know anything about him. She just knows that he's the king of the Burn, and he is the brother of the king of the Fade. And she hates the king of the Fade, so might as well hate him too. I thought the dialogue in this book was pretty funny, which I really like. I always enjoy a good laugh from a book. Some tropes. I know some people don't like tropes. I like tropes, but it's forced proximity. I love forced proximity trope. I think it's such like an underrated trope. If you have any good forced proximity books, like please let me know. I do love that trope. It has a little dagger to throat scene. Who doesn't love that? If you're an enemies to lovers fan, you have to love a good dagger to the throat scene. But there is so much like longing and heartache in this book, and I really love it. The chapters aren't long. There's a little bit of spice. It's not too detailed. I think there was probably like 3 scenes, and they were fairly short, so I might just have a different scale, but I don't think they were too detailed, and they weren't too long either. But this book also has tons of characters, which I really like. I love a book that has a lot of side characters who are still relevant to the story. They're not just side characters that are just mentioned and like you don't really even care about who they are or what their name is. Most of the side characters mentioned here play a part in like the bigger story, or like why the character is the way they are. And this book is multiple point of views, so the main point of view is from Rave, but there are chapters from Khan, the love interest, and there are chapters from some other side characters, and none of these other chapters are boring. I feel like when we have chapters from a side character, a lot of the times we're like, ugh, like skip, like I don't really care about it. But no, like these side character chapters are actually still exciting. And there was also one chapter from, I guess I could say that he was like the villain in the book, and I thought that was really interesting just to see like who he was as a person from his own perspective. But like the ending just shows how this book is like a little segue into like an even like grander story. I know I'm being so animated right now. I'm like moving my arms a lot. Like it's still a great book on its own, and it does not feel like this first book is just a ton of world building, but you could kind of tell that like by the ending the second book is gonna be like even bigger in a way, if that makes sense. It's gonna like have more characters, more stuff is gonna happen, stuff that we probably think that was not relevant in the first book is probably going to be brought up in the second book you were gonna learn more about these characters and like their past, and I'm really excited for the second book, and I'm really upset that I probably have to wait a whole year for Sarah A. Parker to publish book 2. Rating this book 4.5 stars. The only reason it's not 5 stars is because it wasn't a book that I was like, oh my god, I cannot put this book down at all. So 4.5, 4.75, really close to 5 stars. And the only reason it's not 5 stars is because I don't want to be giving out 5 stars like super freely anymore. It is still rated 5 stars on my Goodreads though. The book I started after that one was an audiobook I listened to, and it was Daughter of the Pirate King, which I have right here, thank god, because I don't want to run back upstairs. But it's Daughter of the Pirate King by Tricia Levenseller. It's a young adult fantasy, pirate fantasy. It's enemies to lovers. I read this for the first time I think like 2 years ago, and I really liked it then. I still like it now. I would say that like my taste since then in books have kind of changed a bit. Like listening to it again, I was like, oh, like it's not like, it's still good, but not as good as how I remembered it. I remember I was like in love with this book. I rated it 5 stars. I think this time around I would give it 4 stars. It might also just be because I listened to the audiobook. I think listening to a book and reading a book are 2 different experiences, and I know a lot of people like reading and listening to the book at the same time, and I tried giving that a try. It just didn't work out for me because I read faster than the audiobook narrator talks, and it really annoys me to slow down like me reading to match like the narrator, which I know sounds super weird, but I can't do that. If I had to like speed up the audiobook to match up to my pace of reading, it would just sound like a chipmunk. I listened to it in preparation for Vengeance of a Pirate Queen, which is the spin-off book to Daughter of the Pirate King and Daughter of the Siren Queen, which is the original 2 books. And like, you know, it's a fun book. There's tension in it. It's enemies to lovers. I love their banter. They're very flirty. The only reason I didn't really like it now is because it isn't a slow burn book. So now, like, especially with enemies to lovers, I much prefer like a slow burn one where like you can see like the characters like progress into like going from like hating each other to tolerating each other, and then to eventually like being like, oh crap, I like this person. I thought I was just tolerating them, but no, like I think I'm falling for this person. And this book is an insta-love, but it's just kind of quick to that. And like it's a young adult book. I'm not gonna like complain about it too much. I really enjoyed it a couple years ago. I still enjoyed it now. But the book starts off with Alosa, who is obviously the daughter of the Pirate King. Who would have ever guessed, right? But she is sent on a mission to go aboard this enemy ship. So she makes up a ploy where she pretends to be captured by the enemy when she's actually there by her own design, so that she can sneak out of her prison cell in the enemy ship and snoop around to do this mission that her father sent her on. And while she's there, she meets Raiden. I'm gonna keep saying Raiden, but when I listen to the audiobook, apparently his name is pronounced Ridden. Who's Ridden? Who's Ridden? All I know is Raiden. I don't know. No, why is his name Ridden? His name is spelled out R-I-D-E-N. Why is it pronounced like R-I-D-D-E-N? No, his name is Raiden. So that also tripped me out when I was listening to the audiobook, because every single time his name was mentioned, it was like Ridden, Ridden, Ridden. Raiden sounds so much more attractive. But there she meets Ridden, Ridden, who is the first mate aboard this enemy ship, and his brother is the captain. And so they kind of like form like a flirty enemies relationship type thing, and then like, you know, like they start like liking each other and stuff. You know, it's enemies to lovers, you know, good stuff. But obviously like she has her own plans of why she's on that ship. Okay, next book that I read was actually a book that I started out by listening to, and then halfway through I was like, no, I cannot only listen to this book, because again, like as I said, I feel like reading and listening to a book are like two different experiences, and I do prefer reading a book compared to listening to a book because I feel like I'm just so much more like immersed in the world, and I get to imagine things a lot better than when I am listening to a book. So like if I had a choice, I would prefer to physically read a book than to listen to it. But the thing is, like, sometimes I don't have a choice but to listen to a book because I don't have time. And all I have time for is to listen to a book because that way I can multitask. But so I started listening to this book, and like 55% through it, I was like, no, it's so good. I cannot only listen to it, I need to actually be reading this book. And that book is Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett. This cover is the Barnes & Noble exclusive edition. And when I tell you that I went on a hunt for this book, because I was listening to it at work, and then I was like, nope, we need it. I'm gonna stop listening to it now because I need to experience the rest of this book through reading it. So as soon as I got off work, I went on a hunt. I went to Target because I thought I would be able to get it in hardcover. No, I wasn't able to. So then I went to Barnes & Noble's, but the thing is I knew my Barnes & Noble's didn't have the hardcover edition, but I thought that if I was going to be stuck with a paperback, I may as well get an exclusive edition paperback. So that's what I did, and all of this was because I was too impatient to order it online and wait 2 days for it to arrive. But like, I honestly at first had no interest in reading this book, and I'm not even gonna lie, I thought that this book was an actual encyclopedia. When I first like heard about this book, I was like, oh, like it's just like an encyclopedia of fairies and Emily Wilde is the author. Like I thought it was just probably gonna have like a bunch of like myths and folk tales. Now I just feel like an idiot for thinking that, because the author of Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies is Heather Fawcett, and this is a fantasy book. I've heard some people call it light academia. I don't even know what dark academia technically means, but it is like an academia type book. It's not dark, not at all. It's very magical and whimsical, and it's a cozy fantasy book, and I never knew how much I would like cozy fantasy books until I read this book. But so, anyways, this book, it follows Emily Wilde, who is a professor at Cambridge University. So I would say that if I had to give like a time frame for when this book is set, obviously it's still a fantasy world, but it's set in like our world. Does that make sense? I would say like maybe like late 1800s, early 1900s. I also have a really horrible concept of time, so that might be completely like wrong. But Emily Wilde is a professor at a university, and she researches fairies in this world. Like fairies, they are an actual species that is recognized by science, and the study of fairies is called dryadology, that's what it is. The study of fairies is called dryadology, and so Emily Wilde is a professor and researcher in dryadology. She goes into like this villagey area in like another country in Europe, and it's cold there, but she is there to research a type of fairies that no one else has ever been able to encounter or research before. She just knows of its existence, and she wants it to complete the encyclopedia that she is making, hence the title Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. And so while she's going there, she ends up getting a letter from her academic rival and like this other professor at the university, and his name is Wendell Bumblebee. His name's not Bumblebee, oh my god. She ends up getting a letter from Wendell Bumblebee, and he's like, oh, like teasing her and stuff in his letter, and then lo and behold, he shows up at like the cottage that she's staying at, and he's like, yeah, like I'm here to like help your research, and she does not like it. She does not like the fact that he is there, and he's all just like cheery and charming, you know, we love Bumblebee. I really liked how they used fairies in this book, because I feel like we're so used to like when we read about fae or anything like that, like the main character is a fae or the love interest is a fae. Meanwhile, in this book, it stays very true to the folk tales from like our like actual world. But this book is formatted as journal entries, which still made sense when I was reading through it, but so instead of chapters, it's just different dates. And true to Emily Wilde being a researcher, there are also like little footnotes in her journals. But pretty much again, Bamblebee comes and she really doesn't like him and he teases her all the time and he knows how to push her buttons, but it's not in a malicious way. It's just who he is. And he's like a charmer and he's a little cocky and he is high maintenance in like an endearing way, kind of, or at least that's how I read it. Like, he likes his clothes a certain way, he likes his stuff super clean, and he has like his students be like his little posse and assist him in everything, which I thought was funny. But yeah, I really liked this book. I have about 100 pages of it left, but I did get caught up in some other books and I wanted to give this book my full time and attention because I did not want to continue listening to it because I wanted to read it. So I put this book on a little pause, but I do think that this book was beautifully written and I love Bamblebee. The romance is still developing, like where I am in the book right now. No reading on this book because I'm still in the middle of it. So next book that I am still reading is Lore of the Wilds by Annalise Brana. And this is an adult romantasy novel. I'm only about 80 pages into it, but I am really liking it. This book just released February 27th, and I did get it early from Harper Voyager. They sent it to me. And honestly, like, I really, really like it. It is a little love triangle situation. I know a lot of people don't like it. I haven't gotten to the love triangle yet. I have met one of the love interests, and the only reason I know that he is the love interest is because he's literally the dude on the cover. It's not insta-love. Thank God. I don't like insta-love. I think I've made it very clear that that is a topic I'm very passionate on. I don't like insta-love, but it is supposed to be an enemies to lovers sort of situation as well. So let me describe the book a little bit. The main character's name is Lore, and she is a human. And in this world, humans are trapped in this town that is kind of like a prison. And it's surrounded by this forest, and they live in a world of fae. So per the humans' belief, they were sent to this world to live in this town called Duskmere, so in the world of fae, because they believe that it was like their punishment for something, and that is not truly where they belong, and it is just temporary. Like, that's like their religion's beliefs. But the fae, they treat humans horribly. They think humans are below them, they're disgusted by humans, they abuse humans, they guard this town that the humans are in, like they guard the forest surrounding it, so humans can't leave the forest because they don't want humans to like be in the fae world. They want humans to just stay in their little village. And one day, Lore, she is taken by some fae guards, and she's taken to the fae kingdom, and when she's there, they're like, hey, like, we heard that you can read the fae language, and she's like, yeah, like, I can. And they're like, okay, good, so we have a proposition for you. We have an enchanted library here in this fae palace, and there's a curse on it, so no fae can enter. And since you're human, you're technically not from fae lands because of, you know, the earlier belief that humans were sent over to this world and this town as punishment. So he's like, so I want you to work here as a librarian, and you know, you will be compensated. And so Laura goes into like this little negotiation where she's like, well, like, I could and I agree to be your librarian, but you need to help the humans out because, you know, our living conditions are horrible and it's because of you guys. So help us out and I'll be your librarian because you really don't have a choice. You need someone who can read the fae language as well, so, and who isn't fae, to be able to go into that library. So then she starts working as the librarian in this enchanted library, and as far as I know, one of the love interests is a guard who is a fae guard sent over to protect her. That's about as far as I am. I'm very excited to continue reading this. I was gonna read tonight, but then I was like, well, I wanted to make a video, so here I am, but I'm definitely gonna be continuing reading this in March. And then another book that I started in February is Bride by Ali Hazelwood, and I actually just started this today. I started the audiobook. And I'm really not sure how I feel about it. I know this is Ali Hazelwood's like fantasy novel debut. I don't know, I have mixed feelings because I'm not a big fan of the writing, but I do like how the story is going, which sounds weird. I'm like 30% through it, I think, right now. It's giving 2016 or 2015 werewolf Wattpad stories, but like in a good way. Like, I used to eat those stories up. I used to love them. And I think I've heard some people mention that it's like the Omegaverse, like the book is inspired by the Omegaverse. I don't know what the Omegaverse is. I liked the werewolf stories on Wattpad, and that was like the only thing I was like reading for a really long time. But I still don't know what the Omegaverse is. Like, I never like, I guess, dove deep enough for that. So humans, vampires, werewolves, they all live in the same world. And they all know of each other's existences, right? So it's not like the werewolves and vampires are hiding from humans. But the humans and the vampires, they have a treaty, like a peace treaty. But pretty much there's an election, and the new human governor is not reinstating the treaty between the vampires and the humans. So now the vampires are like, crap, like, this is bad for us, because what if the werewolves and the humans decide to work together? Like, we're doomed. So then the vampires are like, no, like, we're gonna make a treaty with the werewolves because we need to put our survival first. So in this like little treaty, this little pact that they have, they end up making a little marriage of convenience between the alpha of the werewolves and the daughter of like the most powerful vampire ruler. So the vampires set up an arranged marriage between Misery, that's the main character's name, I know, her name's Misery, and the alpha, his name's Lo. So it's again, marriage of convenience, and obviously they're both reluctant to get married to each other because they are supposed to hate each other, or well, they do. Vampires and werewolves hate each other. Like, I think it's a really fun book. I love a good marriage of convenience story or an arranged marriage story. I just don't know about the writing, again, because I really don't like some of Misery's like inner monologue. Like, I feel like even though it's a fantasy book, it's written very much so like a contemporary romance, in a sense that the terms and words that are being used is very like today's day and age, which sometimes I like on some parts of this book I found cringy. Like, they literally use the word furry in the book multiple times. I just don't know how I feel about it. Like, I feel like the language is just too trendy, if that makes sense, and I think it's a little bit cringy, but it is a really fun story, so I have really mixed feelings about it. And like, again, I just started this book today. I'm only 30% through, so my feelings definitely might change. But I will say though, Ali Hazelwood loves her STEM girlies, and you know what, so do I. Because, you know, like Love Hypothesis, Love on the Brain, Love Theoretically, like, they're all STEM girlies, right? I've only read Love Hypothesis, I've never read the other two. But in this book, the main character, Misery, she's like a computer science genius. And we love a smart girl. Because you know what? I could never do comp sci. I took AP comp sci in high school. Never again. That was torture. But this book does already have some good, like, my wife moments. Like, oh my god, like, where is my wife? Or what did you do to my wife? It hits good because it is a marriage of convenience. Whenever like they use the term my wife in a marriage for convenience, that hits hard. Okay, that's all the books that I read or am reading right now. And now my TBR for March, I was planning on making a TBR jar, and I am still gonna do it, but I think I'm gonna make that video for April, and I'm just gonna do a TBR jar for my April TBR instead of my March TBR, just because I have so many books that I am in the middle of reading right now. But obviously, continuing the books I'm reading, continuing Lore of the Wilds, and then Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, and then I also have Emily Wilde's Map of the Other Lands, which I actually heard that some people like more than the first book, which I'm really excited about. Some people who didn't really care for the first book liked the second book, but look at this cover. This is gorgeous. It's just straight up hardcover, no dust jacket, but it's so pretty. And I originally wanted the hardcover of the first book so that I would match this one, but it's okay because this is still pretty. But again, I've been pretty slow on my reading, so I'm gonna try to reel it in just so I don't disappoint myself when I don't go through all of the books that I told myself I would read. But next book I'm gonna try to read in March is gonna be Nightbane by Alex Astor. I forgot to put the dust jacket on this before showing it, but this is what it looks like under the dust jacket. This book was sent to me from Peak Beyond, which is the publisher, and I did read Light Lark and I did like it, and I just need to read Nightbane. And what's called, I have higher expectations of Nightbane than I did with Light Lark because I just know that this book is gonna have some good tension and some good like romance moments in it. And as for the fantasy aspect of it and like the actual plot, besides the romance plot, I really don't know what to expect. Like at all. Like I know it's still a love triangle and I'm Team Grimm all the way. If Alex decides that Grimm is not endgame, I am finding out where she lives, and Alex better be expecting a knock on the door from me. That sounds so threatening. It's not, but like seriously. Grimm better be endgame. I don't care about Oro. I really, really don't. I want Grimm and Isla to be together. But this is my goal for March, which this is already going to be more than what I've read in both January and February. So hopefully I'll be able to go through all of this. If I don't, then I'm just going to be really sad again. But if I do, actually if I end up going through all of this sooner than before March ends, I'm just gonna make my TBR jar then and then have it pick out my TBR all the way through April. But that was my January and February wrap up / March TBR. I hope you liked the video and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!